Albert Einstein dies in 1955, and you probably think the story ends right there. You picture a respectful goodbye, a quiet autopsy, the body returned to the family, and the legend safely sealed in a history book. But something else happens. Albert Einstein's body had barely cooled when Dr. Thomas Harvey made the decision that would follow him for the rest of his life. In 1955, during the autopsy, Harvey removed Einstein's brain. He did not do it later, and he did not do it with clear permission. He took it right there in the moment, believing the organ inside that skull might hold the secret to genius. But here is the twist most people never hear. Harvey was not a brain expert. He was a pathologist at Princeton Hospital in New Jersey, working the kind of quiet job that usually sits in the back of the building. Einstein himself had asked for cremation without any special examination. He wanted the end to be plain. He wanted no shrine, no glass case, and no crowds leaning in like he was a miracle on display. He pushed against the idea that he should get special treatment, even at the end. He feared that his remains would feed a strange craze for brain collecting. He knew people had chased this kind of thing with other famous bodies, like a Soviet project where scientists tried to study Lenin's brain to turn it into a symbol. Einstein did not want that fate. He worried that people would chase a shortcut to genius by hunting for it in tissue, like a hidden coin in a pocket. Harvey faced that reality, but he made his choice anyway. He removed the brain and kept it, setting off a chain of events that cracked his whole life in half. Harvey did not treat the brain like a normal medical specimen. He sliced it into about 240 blocks and encased them in collodion, a coating used to protect tissue. He created over 1,000 thin slides for a microscope. Then he did something that sounds like a wild rumor, but it is completely true. He stored most of the pieces in alcohol-filled jars, put those jars in a cider box, and kept that box in his home under a beer cooler for over 2 decades. If you stop watching here, you might keep believing Einstein's legacy stayed clean and untouchable. But the real story is messier, stranger, and driven by one stubborn man who would not let go. If you think this story is just about a stolen brain, you are missing the deeper pattern of Einstein's life. Before the wild headlines and the famous hair, Albert Einstein was a quiet boy trying to make sense of the world. He was born in Germany in 1879 into a Jewish family that valued learning and independence. That family story stretches back into a Jewish community in Germany that lived with limits many modern viewers may not realize. Jewish families often faced steep barriers in education, jobs, and social life. Albert's ancestors dealt with a clear problem of building stable lives in a system that did not always welcome them. Many chose education and technical work as their path forward because those fields offered more room to succeed. That choice created a culture inside the family that valued thinking and learning. By the time Albert was born, that mindset was already part of the air he breathed. His early life was not the smooth road many imagine. His family faced money trouble when the family business struggled. Albert's father, Hermann Einstein, wanted success in the growing electrical industry, which was still new and risky in the late 19th century. Hermann made a bold choice to go into business making electrical equipment. Betting his future on technology many people still did not trust. At first, the gamble looked promising, but the market shifted fast, competition rose, and the business struggled. The family's finances became unstable, forcing moves and constant uncertainty. Young Albert grew up watching that instability unfold, learning a powerful lesson that safe paths were not always available. His mother, Pauline Einstein, carried a different kind of pressure. She valued discipline and made the choice to push Albert toward learning the violin at a young age. Practice required patience, something the young boy did not always enjoy. But that steady push built habits that would later shape how he worked through complex problems. Albert did not simply inherit a name, he inherited a pattern of bold risks and stubborn thinking. When he struggled in school systems that valued strict memorization, he reacted in a way that echoed his family's history. He pushed back, questioned teachers, and looked for his own path. Later, he made the bold choice to leave Germany and continue his work in Switzerland. That move followed the same family instinct to step away from systems that felt too rigid. The consequence was life-changing, giving Albert the space to let his ideas about space, time, and light grow. Years passed, and his theories reshaped physics, making him one of the most famous scientists in the world. Einstein did not treat intelligence like a magic gift dropped from heaven. He leaned toward the idea that the mind grows through curiosity, effort, and the world around you. He did not see genius as a fixed jewel sitting inside the skull. That belief is one reason he did not want his brain hunted like a treasure. But when Harvey took the brain in 1955, it became the start of a chase. Einstein was gone, but his brain turned into a physical heirloom people believed might hold the secret to brilliance. Harvey became the gatekeeper to that heirloom. The fallout from that theft came fast. Acting without prior family consent, Harvey triggered immediate consequences. Within days, news reports exposed what had happened, and Einstein's family reacted with outrage. Princeton Hospital did not support the move, and Harvey was fired within months after refusing to return the brain. Einstein's son, Hans Albert, eventually granted reluctant retroactive permission for scientific study only, but it came with clear limits and was not a full blessing. Still, it allowed Harvey to keep the brain under strict conditions. While Einstein's public life kept growing even after death, Harvey's private life began to shrink into a single object he refused to let go. The situation unraveled his professional footing. He relocated over and over, unable to keep steady pathology work. His life became unstable enough that even basic professional maintenance became hard. In New Jersey, his medical license lapsed around 1980 because of inactivity and failure to maintain certification while he moved and struggled. His marriages also collapsed. By the time he was jobless and on his third failed marriage, the brain was the heaviest thing in his life. In the 1970s and 1980s, Harvey ended up in Wichita, Kansas. He worked as a plastics factory technician, handling machinery and quality control. A man who once stood over Einstein's body in a hospital now stood over machines in a factory, watching plastic parts and checking standards. Later, he worked as a mortician's assistant, an eerie echo of his old world, but without the status. The brain stayed with him through these moves. The jars traveled in the cider box like a strange suitcase that never gets unpacked. At times, the box went in car trunks, and at one point, it even went to Canada. Einstein's brain rode along with Harvey's unstable life, where every move created a new risk. Break the jars, and you lose it, get caught, and you have to explain it. But Harvey kept choosing the same thing. He carried it with him. Scientists still wanted access, begging Harvey for samples during the 1960s through the 1990s. Real research got slowed down by one person's control. People with credentials and labs had to negotiate with a former pathologist who kept Einstein's brain like a private possession. Harvey mailed parts of it through regular post without special permits. Sometimes, the samples traveled in packaging as plain as a mayonnaise jar. He handed out tiny portions reluctantly, often after delays or conditions. When people did finally study the tissue, a story started spreading that sounded like a perfect punchline. His brain had 73% more glial cells than average. It landed like a magic number, making the whole thing seem solved. But if you keep believing that number, you lose the true story of what scientists actually saw. The real data points to something much narrower. The claim comes from a 1985 study by Marion Diamond, who received slides from Harvey. She did not claim a giant across-the-board difference everywhere. She looked at neuron to glial ratios in 4 cortical areas. She compared these specific spots to a control group of 11 average men around age 64. What she found was not a massive jump. Only one place stood out, the left inferior parietal area, 39, a region linked to math and language processing. In that one spot, there were more glial cells per neuron. Glial cells are helper cells that feed and support neurons. Diamond suggested that more glial cells could point to higher metabolic need, meaning a hard-working brain region might require more support. But the data does not show causation for genius. It only shows a modest shift in one specific area. Other measured locations did not stand out in the same way at all. The 73% claim erased all those limits, turning a careful single-area observation into a simple slogan. Critics pushed back hard on the bold claims. They pointed to the tiny control groups, sometimes only 11 to 25 brains. They questioned the statistics and warned about fixation, artifacts, meaning changes caused by how a brain is preserved in chemicals after death, not how it worked in life. They also pointed out the biggest hole of all. There was no pre-death imaging and no true baseline to compare against. Without brain scans from when Einstein was alive, researchers could not know what was truly unique. Furthermore, critics noted there were no IQ-matched controls, making it much harder to say what the small differences really meant. The hunger for a shortcut pushed other researchers to keep hunting. Some studies reported expanded parietal regions, describing them as about 15% larger. They talked about unusual folding patterns, including reports like a missing Sylvian fissure. They described denser connections in the front of the brain tied to a thicker corpus callosum, which is the bridge connecting the left and right sides. They even pointed to expanded motor areas tied to the face and hand, connecting it to his violin playing. But the skeptical view remained blunt. No unique genius blueprint ever showed up. These studies were only descriptive, meaning they described what the tissue looked like without explaining how genius happens. A missing-looking groove might just be an artifact from how the tissue was cut and preserved. A thicker bridge does not automatically tell you what traffic crossed it during life. The belief that you can find the secret of genius hiding in a brain fold is tied to an old, bad idea called reductionism. Reductionism means taking something huge and human and shrinking it into one small cause. It is the same impulse that drove phrenology, the discredited skull-measuring craze that promised you could read a person's mind by feeling bumps on their head. Phrenology was wrong, but it left behind a cultural habit of believing greatness can be measured in the body. When Einstein died, that old impulse woke up. The public wanted a physical reason they could point to, something that would let them say where genius lives. They wanted a switch, a piece of biology that turns mystery into a simple answer. But an active brain builds more support cells simply through hard intellectual work. The data says glial increases can occur from intellectual activity alone. Many critics argue that genius is more likely tied to neuroplasticity, environment, and training than a fixed shape you can measure after death. Neuroplasticity means the brain can change with use. If you learn, struggle, try again, and build skill, the brain shifts. That possibility flips the story entirely. It turns the chase away from hunting for a single born-with-it feature and toward the long, grinding work of learning and thinking. It makes genius less like a lightning bolt and more like a fire that has to be fed. Einstein's brain stayed a private secret for decades until 1978, when a journalist named Stephen Levy rediscovered it in Wichita, Kansas. The details stuck in the public memory because it was so bizarre. The jars inside the cider box stored under a beer cooler. Before that moment, the custody was a secret. After the rediscovery, it became a public shock. People felt a mix of curiosity because it was Einstein and disgust because the way the body part was stored sounded careless. It scrambled what people thought they knew about legends. You think the remains of world-famous figures are treated with ceremony and science is organized. Then you learn that the brain of the man who changed the universe traveled through homes and trunks while Harvey's life shifted around it. Eventually, pieces began to leave Harvey's control in a more permanent way. After years of tight control, parts were donated to museums after the 1990s. The focus moved away from the cider box and toward institutions. Before Harvey died in 2007, part of what remained was donated, including 46 slides that went to the Mutter Museum. Harvey had spent his life holding onto a famous name, but the consequence was that his own life became tied to that cider box. He started as a hospital doctor inside a respected system and ended moving around the country without steady pathology work. Einstein's brain stayed famous, but Harvey's life did not. The whole chase did not deliver what people wanted. The research did not offer a causal link to intelligence. The best it could do was point to small differences that might or might not matter. The effort did not deliver a real key to intelligence, delivering instead scandal, noise, and the kind of spectacle Einstein wanted to avoid. The saga shows how badly people wanted a secret and how little it delivered. The gap between what people wanted and what the story gave them is massive. They wanted a neat answer and got hype. They wanted a genius hack and got flawed studies, tiny samples, and no result that could be repeated. Einstein stays active in this story because his final act is a powerful refusal. He asked for cremation and no special treatment. He did not want to be turned into a relic. His ancestry story does not hand you a magic trait. It hands you a human line full of ordinary struggle and ordinary choices. In the end, Einstein's greatest legacy was never something that could be sliced into pieces. It lived in the fearless way he thought, a pattern that ran through his family long before the world knew his name. Genius does not sit still, and it does not live as a relic. It emerges, moves, and grows in ways a stolen organ can never explain.